Hello, everyone. My apologies for being a couple of minutes late. I am so excited to be here with you again. I have some housekeeping things to mention. I was having issues with the comments. I was not able to see comments. So I did some work on that, and I can see comments that come from YouTube, but I am not seeing comments from Facebook. So I need to figure out about that. But if you want to communicate with me, you can definitely go to the YouTube channel at Mika Fashion and then write comments. Otherwise, keep writing your comments and I will respond to you after the show. I know today is a really crazy day because a lot of you are probably cooking and preparing for the holiday. But I thought that this story was an amazing story to tell exactly before Thanksgiving, because it's a story that there has so many parts in it to be grateful for. And John is such an amazing person that really sees the good in the situation. I want to remind everybody that we're getting ready for our first retreat in January, the Ignite Your Life retreat. I'll talk a little bit more about it at the very end of the show. We may go over a few minutes, and there is information on my pages too, so do look into it. And aloha salute from San Diego. I'm so happy to see you. And hey, it is a message from Facebook, so maybe I did manage to fix it. So without further ado, welcome, John.
Hi, Aneurysm, how are you?
Hi, I'm so happy to have you here, but I want to first tell everybody how we met.
Okay, that was, yeah.
I think I have to share that because I have to tell you, John, there are no coincidences. There are no coincidences. Things happen. We needed to have this moment here today. And I think that God arranged for us to get together months ago in order for today to give me this privilege to tell your special story. So the way I met John, okay, John is a co-founder of Groove Digital, and I never do sales in my group, but I am so excited about this product that I use for my business. And I didn't know John. John was a co-founder of it, and I just used the software. I used the technology, but I was having a little bit of an issue, and I needed to contact somebody. And a person online gave me the name of the person who was John, Jhon, at Groove Digital. And I, a foreigner, I know English better than the people who are giving me the emails, right? And I'm like, oh, they must have made a typo. And I fixed it to Jhon to reach John. So anyway, I write John an email about a technical thing, and John answers, well, you don't want to talk to me. You want to talk to the Jhon, right? And then we had this little bit of an interaction. I think that I was disturbing John in the middle of his anniversary dinner. He was out with his wife and with Mike Filsame, who's the other co-founder of the company. And but we stayed in touch and we stayed communicating with each other. And here we are today, right, John?
Yeah, I got to tell you that I remember it really well. I was at a restaurant in Sarasota. I'm trying to think of the name of it, but it was a very, very nice restaurant. It was with Mike. The email came in on my phone. I looked at it. I replied kind of curtly, and you responded so nicely that I felt immediately like a jerk. And I showed it to Mike, who was there and had seen the email come in too, and was part of the reply. And he's like, oh man, we both felt like idiots at that moment.
So many lessons, right? Many lessons. Sometimes you can correct an email address and end up in the real right place.
Yeah.
The next thing is always be nice, because you have no idea.
Yep. Both ways. And you could have responded back hostile or whatever, and then it would have just went from there, but you didn't. And so we felt really, wow. We still owe you lunch, actually, I think.
You owe me lunch, John. I'm not, I'm not gonna let you get away with it.
Yeah. And I don't even know if you're still in Boca or not, but
I'm in Hollywood now, but I'll come to Boca. No
yeah,
problem.
it's close enough. It's close enough.
Close enough. Yes.
So that's how it happened. I remember that day very, very well.
Yes. So, John, what's amazing is that I've been following you. I go to your page, and actually, when I was living in Boca, I was going to walk in the same boardwalk that you walk at that time every morning. You were walking and you were showing your progress with your wellness, taking care of yourself, giving time for yourself. And I was so inspired by it. And I told my husband, why are we walking here in the middle of the streets? Let's take the car and go where John walks. Maybe we'll cross paths with him. So we went and we walked there, and it's such a beautiful area. And I was inspired. I was inspired by your daily messages. I was inspired by your spirit. I was inspired by your spirituality. I'm also religious. We're in different faiths, but it doesn't matter. We all pray to the same God, in my opinion. But I was very inspired by how you were online, how you related to the people when people were passing away with COVID, the messages that you were putting. I mean, you really inspired me just by being your authentic person on your page. And then at some point, I didn't see you. I was not seeing your posts. And then one day you came back and you put that post about your health. Yeah. So I wanted to tell this story, but I want to go back. Okay, I want to go back to your childhood. I want people to understand where you came from, what you built, what the adversities that you went through your life, and then how, when you were at the highest times, the most prosperous times, how you had to deal with this big adversity too. Because I think it's important for people to see
the roller coaster ride.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I'm the son of Italian and Irish immigrants, and I grew up in a little town called Piermont, New York. And it was a town of about 1,000 people. It wasn't a lot, and we were just outside of New York City. And it was out of those 1,000 people, I was probably related to about 500 of them, half on my mother's side and half on my father's side, and all the aunts and the uncles from Italy and from Ireland. And when you ran away as a child, you ran down 5 or 6 houses to a grandmother or a great aunt's house or a great uncle's house or something like that. And I grew up in the restaurant business, and the restaurant is still there to this day. It's called Cornetta Seafood Restaurant, and it's in Piermont, New York. It's still there today. So I grew up, I would call it, kind of upper middle class for today, by today's standards. And I didn't know it at the time as a little kid, and we would do pretty, we did okay. And the connection to Florida was my father would, every year he would take us out of school for the entire month of February, and he would bring us down to Florida. And he would actually, my father, I remember him, he would go into school and he would say, listen, he'd say, I'm taking my son out of school for February and I'm bringing him to Florida. And they would say, no, you're not. He'd say, and I remember he would say, I didn't come here to ask you permission. I came here to ask you if you want to give him homework or not, because I'm taking him out for the whole month. And they would end up giving a stack like this of homework. And we would get in the car and we would drive to Florida. And every month we'd come down, every February, we'd come down the entire month of February to Florida. And that was my young childhood. I grew up in the restaurant business, and I watched my parents work very, very hard. And sometime I grew up as a chef, and that was my background. And in the early 80s, after graduating high school, I came down to South Florida and made my name as a chef and opened some restaurants with my father, and they became very, very, very tough. It was just a tough, grinding out living. I remember I was making, I'm guessing here, and it was probably good money then. I was making $400 a week, and I was working 3 days a week at Publix, and I was working at Publix making $3.50 an hour. and I was slicing meat at Publix in the morning, and I had a baby. So I have a 35-year-old. So I had to do what I had to do to.
This is the baby that got married last week, right?
Right.
Congratulations.
Exactly. Yes, thank you. So I had to do two jobs. One was working as a chef full time, like 50 or 60 hours a week for about $400. And I think that came out to about $5 an hour. And then I worked 3 days a week from 7 in the morning to 11 in the morning at Publix slicing meat. And did really, I had a good life. And that went on for quite a while. And I don't even know if you know this part of the story or not, but I then in 1990, I decided to pack up everything that I owned and move to Atlanta.
Yes.
And I moved to Atlanta, and I got into a different industry, a completely different industry. But what happened was I moved to Atlanta, and I had $700 in my pocket, and I slept on the floor for 2 years. I went and I rented a small office, and I started a company, and I would pretend that I was the first employee there every morning, and I was always the last one to leave. And then I would run down like at maybe 5 in the morning. I would run down to it didn't have a restroom in the office. It had a public restroom for the entire office. And I would run down there at 5 in the morning, and I would shower like this and use the restroom, and then come back and take a little nap or whatever. And then by 7 o'clock in the morning, I was the first one there, and I'd beat the girls that show up at 7:30, and I'd say, "Oh, I beat you again. I beat you again." And I remember that as I started saving money, I would rent a hotel room, but I would always rent it on a Wednesday. And the reason that I'd rent it on a Wednesday is because it was the middle of the week, and I could go there on a Wednesday and I could take a bath, and then I could spend Wednesday night and wake up Thursday and try to get a late checkout and take a shower and then be ready for the weekend, and then have, get my bath and the shower in for the weekend. The weekend, that was the only bath and shower that I would get. And I turned that, and I built that into a company that eventually was doing $12 million a year. And I had 300 employees at one point. I had several nightclubs, several restaurants, and it was really, 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 really good. And then that kind of flowed for a while, and I don't want to just keep rolling on, but I went and I started partying a little bit, and I started drinking a little bit and having a lot of fun. And I was married, and I ended up going through a pretty hard divorce. And I was really on top of the world. At that point, I was living in about a 12,000 square foot mansion, and I was driving a couple of really nice cars, and basically had no one telling me what to do or what not to do. And when you get to the point where you're accountable to no one, and you really don't own a lot of accountability yourself, then you can get a little bit crazy. And so I used to tell people in Atlanta, there was 3 types of lines at every nightclub. There was the line to get in, there was the VIP line, and then there was my line, and in that every nightclub. And so I would not even leave my house until 10 or 11 o'clock at night, and go out and, in limousines, or just go out and drink and drive. And that burnt me out. And finally, in 2009, by 2008, when the financial crisis hit and the real estate crisis hit, it all kind of hit me at once. I went through the divorce, and it came crashing in. And I was smart enough, though, still at the time, to say, I can salvage some of this. I can sell this, and I can get a little bit of money. I mean, a good amount of money. I can get a couple of $1 million for what I've done so far. I probably could have gotten 10 times that a few years earlier, 5 years earlier. But I can get a couple $1 million here, and paid out over time. And I did that, and ended up, while in Atlanta, about a year later, meeting someone else and getting remarried and having another child, son.
Mm-hmm.
And that started changing everything for me. And I found my faith again, and decided it was time to move back to South Florida. And that's at that point, right before moving back to South Florida, I entered into internet marketing, and I was sitting at a desk not unlike the one that I'm sitting at right now, and I was still kind of in the other business, but figuring out internet marketing. And I remember sitting there for hours and hours and hours at a time. I mean, literally, if I could have gotten away with eating and using the restroom from the chair that I was sitting in, I would have never left the chair. And
I'm familiar.
yeah, so 18 hours a day, I would sit in a room and I would sleep for 6. And I learned internet marketing and how to do it and how to build a list. And I became known as a list builder. And I built a list of 350,000 subscribers in 14 months, my first 14 months online. And I began selling traffic. I began selling traffic to people like Frank Kern and Mike Filsaime and Russell Brunson and Matt Basak. And I was the guy behind the scenes selling traffic to these guys. And they were all asking me, why aren't you promoting for us? Why are you selling this traffic? And I just said, I just don't want any complications. I just want to send you the traffic. You send me the cash, and it's a clean transaction. And I was one of the first people that really started selling solo ads and making them famous that way, where people were just selling what's now known as solo ad traffic. I was one of the first people to really do that back in 2009 and 10 and 11, and created some software for that. And it was back in those days that I met Mike Filsaime, and it was one of the stories that went around was there was a gentleman that introduced me to him and said, this is the guy, like he's huge in the industry. And at the time in 2008, 9, and 10, Mike had launched Butterfly Marketing and a bunch of other products and was huge. And they said, this is the guy to have your eye on, but don't worry, he's way out there. You're never going to meet this guy. And I remember saying to myself, yeah, you're not going to meet him. I'm going to meet him. I'll be partners with him one day, because it's just how I did things. And
love
sure
that.
enough, years later, I did that. So I went through the internet marketing route, and I started doing that, and I moved to South Florida and came down to South Florida, where I deepened my faith even further. And I pivoted. In 2014, I saw that the solo ad business had become saturated, and it became a little bit scammy. And it became scammy, honestly, because of some things that I had created. And I created them, and people had then took advantage of the things that I created and took them. And it's a fine line of only 1 or 2 degrees, that if you create something and it's really, really optimal, and you can get it going, somebody can just by 1 degree shift it, and it then becomes scammy. And so I had things that were very, very optimal, and they were just working very fine. And people saw it and went, oh, we can just move it 1 inch over and make double the money, but now they're hurting people. And so I saw that happening, and I got out of the industry, and I decided to get into e-commerce. And this was around 2014, I think. 2014, I started selling T-shirts online. And in 2015, I sold $1.7 million in T-shirts online. And then in 2016, I started selling sneakers online. I decided to sell sneakers instead. And I was selling in 16, 17, and 18, I was selling $50,000 a day in sneaker sales every single day, and out of a store that I created on Shopify. And it was during that time that I realized that I could create what I thought would be a better platform than Shopify for people like me. And that's basically how I had done all the businesses up to that point. I thought I could create a better restaurant or a better nightclub or a better whatever. And I met a friend of mine named Matt Seralta, who was developing some software at the time. And I said, Matt, if we can switch this software and we can make it do this and that, then I think I can get some users. And we started doing that. And then I said, I became very good friends with Mike Filsaime over the years. We've done a lot of projects with him since then. We bring Mike in, the three of us could be a great team. And we did. And it was in 2019 that we created Groove Digital, and today we have over 650,000 users. We've done over $60 million in sales now, and our best year is probably going to be next year. So.
And I can understand why. I mean, the suite of products is amazing. I think that I was one of your first 50,000. So I'm there quite early on, and you guys are just keep improving and improving faster than I can get.
There's 17 apps now. 17.
It's incredible. And so here you are on top of the world with the partner that you wanted to have, creating a suite of products that's going to really change the environment in e-commerce, in this whole digital marketplace. And then what happens? You go to a regular checkup, right?
Yeah. A couple things happened. I mean, I had a couple of setbacks. My mother got dementia, and that kind of threw me off my horse a little bit, and I got back on, and you've got to live with that. You got to live with that. And I had a skin issue going on, and I have it to this day, to some degree, 5% now or 10%. But it was going on for.
Oh, by the way, I read your post, and I wanted to share because that is amazing what she did for you.
Right.
So anyway, tell us. Go in order because I'm jumping the gun.
Okay, so I had this skin issue for 4 or 5 years. It starts one day. I'm sitting at my computer. I'm working, doing e-commerce, and I start getting a tingling, burning skin sensation running up my arms and up my face, and I start turning very flush. And I thought, oh, I must have eaten something. It will pass tomorrow, and tomorrow doesn't pass. And then it gets worse, and it gets worse. And my feet are on fire, and my fingers and my hair and my face and my tongue and my mouth, every bit of my body. And I rush myself to the emergency room, and they don't know, they can't figure it out. And I go to start going to every doctor you can imagine, and days turn into weeks, and weeks turn into months, and months turn into years of me going to every single doctor you can imagine. And as you can see by the tenacity that I have for business, I have the same kind of tenacity for everything. And so I really went through everything, and I actually ended up giving up. It was like 2 years into it, I just gave up, and then it would go away, and it would come back again. And I thought, it's got to be something I'm eating. So I would hire nutritionists, and my walls are full of vitamins. I'm getting ready to move on Tuesday, and I'm going to throw out, all this stuff, like probably tens and tens of thousands of dollars of things that I've tried, and creams and potions and lotions, and people try this and try that. Just didn't work. And while I was trying this, if you have time for another quick story,
Sure. Go ahead. Yes.
It's an interesting one, I think, anyway. I started getting into longevity a little bit. And I really was interested in, I have some younger children, right? I'm 57 years old, and I have an 11-year-old and a 7-year-old, along with the 35-year-old. So I really want to study longevity. And Mike says to me one day, I said to Mike, oh man, I'm not going to see my daughter. Get married, my second daughter, and all these other things. I'm really worried about it. And Mike says, oh, we're going to live forever. And I said, what do you mean we're going to live forever? It's not possible. And Mike says, no, it's possible. You need to YouTube this name. And so I YouTube the name, and it opens up this whole new world to me of these scientists that are working on actually extending life. And so what do? Well, based upon what I just told you, I dig really, really deep, and I end up meeting all these people. So I end up meeting the top scientists in the field, and I reach out to them, and I become friends with Harvard and Yale and Stanford scientists that are the top in the field. And I start looking at their marketing, and I'm like, guys, your marketing is really, really awful. You look like you're, hostages on a hostage of film. They're really, really bad. We need to help you. And they're like, would you do that? And I said, I would love to. They said, what will you charge? I said, I'm not charging you anything. I just want to be in the know. I want to know what you know. And so they laughed. They said, we'd love to help you with anything. And do you have any health issues? And I thought, well, yeah, I do have a health issue. And my health issue is my skin. And they said, oh, well, look, that's really not our thing, but we'll turn you on to this other Harvard PhD friend of ours in Fort Lauderdale, and he's probably the best at this stuff. And he'll help you out. Don't worry about it. There's no cost. He'll help you. So meantime, I'm down this other path of longevity, which I've been down now for the last 2 years, on how to live longer and live healthier and live, extend your life and all this other stuff, which it fascinates me. And of course, I think everyone should be interested in. But as I'm talking to this Professor Joe Carrington out of Harvard University, after a few months, one of the things he says to me is, he says, John, listen, I want you to go and get your hormones tested. I think it might be a hormonal issue. I think that's what's going on. You might be a hormonal issue. And I go get my hormones tested, and they come back, and several of them are unreadable. They're so low that they're not even readable on the scale. And he says, I don't like this. I think you have an issue going on with your pituitary gland. Let's go get an MRI done. So, okay, we'll get the MRI done. So I go in and I get the MRI done for my pituitary gland, and lo and behold, your pituitary gland's fine. So we got to look down another path. But we'll start doing some supplementation, and we'll do some other things, and we'll get the hormones in order, and that I think that will start to address some things. And it did. It started fixing the skin, along with some other things that we found out later I had a gene mutation and whatnot. But we see something in the background that we weren't looking for, and we're not really sure, but there's a possibility that you have a brain aneurysm. So that's the tough news that you don't want to hear.
And this test, was it done in Florida?
Yeah. It was done in Boca.
It was done in Boca.
It was done in Boca. It was done at one of the Boca Hospital outlay areas on Congress Avenue.
Uh-huh.
And I'm driving. I got gotten home. It was a few days later when my doctor called me up and said, "Listen, they found this little speck. They're not sure. Don't panic." And I said, "Well, now that you know me, I got to rewrite my will. I got to finish a living will. I got to know all this stuff." And he's like, "Relax, John. He goes, these radiologists are, these guys are very, very protective of themselves. If they see a speck of dust, they want to follow up on it." I said, no, I want to do everything possible, every little test that we have to do. He goes, "Well, then you have to have 2 MRIs done, 2 more additional MRIs." And we did. We went and we had 2 more MRIs, one of your brain matter, and then one of the a contrast of the vascular system. So the first one was of the brain matter, and about a day later, he calls me up and he goes, "It looks fine. Everything's normal. I'm telling you, you're going to be great. Everything's good. Don't worry about it. You have to do the next one the following week. You have to wait a week between them." Okay. So the following Friday, I go, 10 in the morning. They give me a Valium because I'm a little bit claustrophobic. I go in. It's over by 10:45. I'm in the car at 11. At 11:10, the phone rings. It's him. "You got a problem." I mean, it took him 10 minutes. I knew right away I had a problem. He says, "You have a 5-millimeter brain aneurysm. It's in the part of your brain that if it ruptures, there's a 50% chance that you'll never speak again or be the same person. And the other 50% is you'll be dead. So we've got to decide what we want to do. And your whole life changes in an instant."
In an instant.
In an instant. You have to start making some tough decisions. And so I did what I always do, right? And so I jumped into high gear, and I said to him, "Okay, who's the best? Let's find the best." And we did. And luckily I have a very good doctor in Boca as well. And he found the best radiologist in Boca. And that radiologist said that at my age and where it was located and whatnot, that he would, definitely recommend proceeding, and that he would recommend a doctor at NYU. And if we could get him. if we could get this doctor, and that this doctor had invented a special procedure that would allow you not to have a cradiotomy, not to have to cut your skull open anymore, that they would go up through your groin, and that they would that they had a stent, and that this stent was made out of 48 strands of a fiber made of thin as the human hair, and that this doctor not only invented the procedure, but he invented the stent itself.
Wow.
And so if you could get him. And so they gave me his information. I called about 3 or 4 times and I couldn't reach him. So I called my doctor back and I said, I can't reach him. His name is Dr. Peter Kim Nelson at NYU. And I said, I can't reach him. And he said, I'm going to get him for you. Well, he got him. And it turns out that they both went to the same medical school.
Wow. There's no coincidences.
No coincidence. You can't make it up.
Yeah.
And he calls me and he says, I'm panicking. And he says, look, calm down. I've got you. If you allow me, he says, I'm having lunch. This was on a Friday. He says, I'm having lunch on Monday. No, excuse me. This was on a Thursday. He says, your doctor is overnighting me all the images. I will call you tomorrow and let you know what I see. He calls me the next day. He confirms everything. And he says, I'm having lunch on Monday with 18 other neurosurgeons in New York. We do it once a month. It just happens to be that you got the stuff to me the day before or the Friday before. You mind if I show you the film to these other 18 neurosurgeons? And I said, of course not. So he shows it to them and he calls me Monday night at 7:00 at night. I thought that for sure he had forgotten about me because it was after 5. And he sounds exhausted. And I said, you sound exhausted. I'm really sorry. He said, no, Mr. Cornetta, I'm sorry. You're my only concern right now. I don't mean to sound, I mean, he just perked right up. He was such a great man. And he said, I've talked to all of them. They all agree that you should do it my way, the way that I want to do it. And there was only 3 ways to do it. One is to cut open your skull and they go and they clamp it. 2 is they go up through your groin and they add something like a Christmas tree tinsel and they put it inside the aneurysm and they clog it up and they hope that it clots. Mm-hmm. And 2 is they add this stent and they go right up through your groin into your brain and they go past the aneurysm and they leave it in place so that the blood is diverted and no longer goes into the aneurysm. Mm-hmm. And they all agree we should do it that way. So if you can be here, and he throws out this date, and if you can be here August 16th, we can get this done for you. And of all the dates that he could possibly throw out, the most fearful date that I've ever had in my life was August 16th. It's the day that my grandmother died. And it's the day that Elvis Presley died, and I'm a big Elvis fan. So I had this date. I'm saying to myself, don't say August 16th. Don't say August 16th. And he goes, August 16th. And so I go, okay, we're going to bring a new meeting to August 16th.
Great attitude.
So I flew up to New York on August the 15th. And on August 16th, I had this surgery and it was successful. And I had a stent implanted in my head. And I go up in May and they go back one more time. They're going to go in through my wrist this time. And they just view it with the camera to make sure that everything is healed properly. And I'm done. And so I had about a 10% chance of having a stroke or dying during the operation. But I had a chance of that happening every year and getting bigger and bigger and bigger throughout my life while it was just sitting in my head. I've been walking down the street and rupturing. And then it comes to find out, he told me that 1 in 50 people in America are walking around right now with an aneurysm in their head and they don't even know it. And that it's so common. And that because of MRIs now, they're finding them. People are going in for an ear canal problem, and they're finding them. And they're finding that 1 in 50 that have an aneurysm.
John, this is an incredible story. And one of the reasons I really, really wanted to have this privilege to share is because what you went through, there's some similarities to what I went through with my husband. The last 2 years, he had 2 strokes. And because he had the stroke, we found that he had a tumor in his adrenal gland. It was a very, very rare tumor called pheochromocytoma. less than 2% of people have it, and the majority of the people that have it don't never find out, because the symptoms of this tumor is high blood pressure, diabetes, panic attacks, and people start treating those symptoms thinking that that's the cause of the problem when it's something else. But in a way, my husband's stroke, in acute anemia, he passed out. We went to the hospital. That's how we found the tumor. So sometimes it's something else that happens in our lives. It happens so that we can find something bigger. It's like God saying, I need to get somehow in the conventional way of this world, find a way for you to find that you have this and you need to take care of this.
Right.
So I remember that my husband passed out, and it was such a traumatic experience. And then at the end of the day, I said, what a blessing it was, because if that didn't happen, if he didn't collapse, we would never find this tumor. And with you, the same thing, you had the skin issue. And at the end, because you were so tenacious to find out, and meeting these people about, it's all about our path. It's where it leads us. And then for us to see the blessings that sometimes what we go through and the pain that we go through is for a good reason. We just don't always find it. We don't always see it so clearly. But I think that here, your path, your trajectory, it's so clear how you managed to get to where you got, saved your life. And then you're here to tell. And one of the things that I feel very, very passionate about is telling people to go for their annual exams. Men more than women don't go for annual exams, and they think that they're invincible. And my husband used to say the following: you don't go checking, because if you check, you're going to find something. There's always something to find. I'm okay. I eat well. I'm healthy. I'm thin. I'm fit. And then, you don't check, and then there's something that has nothing to do with your weight, and it has nothing to do if you exercise, it has nothing to do with nothing. So we need, as we get older, we need to bring awareness to our friends, to our communities, to our audiences, that people need to go and get checked. And because my husband had a stroke, I am very much a part of the stroke community. So when you're talking about the stroke and 1 in 50 having it and not even knowing it, I know the damage that an aneurysm can cause, because I'm very good friends with a lot of people that had strokes because of aneurysms and other reasons, and they have aphasia, they can't speak, or they have a very hard time communicating, and it's tragic. And even my husband has a little bit of aphasia. It's not severe, but sometimes the thought process, he loses the train of thoughts, and then he can't put it together. John, where are you from here? Like, first of all, as far as the brain, is everything working well? Are you feeling stronger? Because in the beginning, you were having difficulties walking and catching your breath. How are you feeling now?
No, 100%. 100%. Just occasionally I feel off, but I think it's in my head.
Good.
Literally in my head.
We're all a little bit off sometimes, so it's okay. Now, what about your skin? Because I saw you showed pictures on your page, and you spoke about that lady who helped you. And so tell us a little bit about it, because I suffer from eczema, and I always say, oh, it's flourishing, must be something I ate. Then I go to the doctor, he tells me that it's stress. Tell me about
Nobody knows. Nobody really knows. I mean, her name was Andrea Cox, who asked me to go and get a test done for MTHFR gene mutation. And I did. And she said, I bet you have a double one. And I had a double one. And she had me take a little vitamin. And since taking that vitamin, it's calmed down by like 95%. Isn't
this crazy?
Yeah. And I've tried everything else. And even the doctors laugh. They're like, oh, everyone has that mutation, especially if you're of European heritage at all, you're going to have that mutation. But it worked. And right now I'm happy. If it might come back, I don't know. If it comes back, I have the number to several other doctors that I've yet to try.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll dig it in even deeper.
So what is she, Andrea? Is she a nutritionist?
She's a nutritionist, and she's a little bit more. What's the word I'm looking for? She's a holistic nutritionist, and she's also like an intuitive.
Okay.
That's her thing. But with me, she really didn't really go down the intuitive. And I would have tried anything. I had people, all kind of remote healers and Christian healers and prayers and you name it. I would have done it. If you told me to, go jump, dip 7 times in the Jordan River, I would have flown to Israel and went 7 times in the Jordan River. Whatever I had to do, I would have done it. And it was really, really, really bad. And I'm not talking just for a while. I'm talking a minimum of 5 years.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So
we're complicated machines.
Yes. And now I'm very grateful that I have at least this time. I'm more grateful for the time that I don't have it now. Like, I'm very aware that the skin is not bothering me right now.
Mm-hmm.
Where before I was only aware when it was bothering me. As opposed to now I'm aware that it's not.
Okay, so that is huge what you just said.
Yes.
Tomorrow is Thanksgiving.
Right.
And, I mentioned in the very beginning, I'm doing a retreat. I'm running a retreat here in South Florida with Matana Jacobs, my partner in crime for the retreats. And she's a gratitude pro. And she really lives in gratitude. And I discovered through my journey that being grateful is not what most people think. People think they got something, they earned something, they experienced something good, and then they're grateful. But sometimes the lack of something bad, it is to be grateful. And we just go through life and we just ignore. When things are going well, we're just, oh, okay. It's almost as if it was supposed to be this way. Right. But in reality, there's so much potential for complications and bad things happening. Like I said, we're complicated machines. The world is a complicated world right now. Every day that we're alive and breathing and walking and having our family and a roof over our heads and healthy, I mean, for every one of these little things, we need to be so grateful. And your experience says, you had it for so long, and when it stopped, you became grateful for every moment that you don't have it. This is huge.
At first, it wasn't that way, right? At first, it was, the opposite. But you're right. Now it's that. And another thing I wanted to tell you or say to you, Miriam, is to listen to your own inner voice and how we say things like, my gut says, and I'm sick to my stomach, and all those things. And that's because your stomach and your gut came around first. And we need to listen to that. I give you a little example today. I needed to donate blood, and I donate blood every 8 weeks. And I do it because I want to be kind, but I also do it because I know that it's very, very healthy to get rid of blood every 8 weeks. And today I was leaving Publix, and the little lady is ringing the bell. Ding, 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 ding. And the voice comes in my head and it goes, just give her $1. Just give her $1. Just give her $1. And I'm going, get back, Satan. Get back, Satan. And I'm going, just give her $1. Just give her $1. And I'm pushing. I have to be somewhere. But I stop. I'm like, okay, I'm going to stop and give you just $1. Just $1 real fast anyway. I go, I give her $1. She says, thank you so much. And the lady standing right next to her says, do you have time to give blood? And I had no idea. And I'm like, are you kidding me? She said, no, look right there. And I look up, and there's the big red truck. And so I got to give blood. And it was because I listened to that little inner voice. What I guess the point I'm making is when you listen to that little inner voice inside, things line up and life becomes real easy, as opposed to you fighting and trying to get everything to work your way.
This is so true. And again, there are no coincidences, right? Everything is, I see that in my life so much. And, I text with my friend Matana because I see miracles in my life at every second. What does it say there? Are you showing something? What is
one blood?
One blood. So there's so many miracles that happen in our lives, but we're going and we're discounting things as coincidences. We're discounting things as, oh, it just aligned. But the truth is that when people say that, life is working for us, that's what it means. Things are happening in a way to lead us to where we need to go. And sometimes we just don't pay attention. But if we open our eyes and see the things that are happening for us, it is, I feel hugged, every time. Even the story of, I'm going to be doing the retreat in Portugal too. And the person who used to pick me up at the airport in Portugal, I always go there to meet with my factory. He couldn't come, so somebody else came to pick me up. And when this person picked me up, I knew her, but not so well. We started talking about how we handled the period of Corona, the pandemic, how she lost her business. She's an Airbnb. She has 2 buildings that she rents out. And I told her, I'm doing a retreat in January. She says, you're doing a retreat? I said, yeah, I wrote this book, this blah, blah, blah. She tells me, if you want to do a retreat in Portugal, I'll help you. I am so into everything you just said. And it's not for nothing that person couldn't pick me up, and she picked me up. And the conversation started about how we handle overcoming adversity. And she was so impressed with what I said. And now we're doing a retreat in Portugal. But we have to open our eyes and be open to accept these gifts that we get. And then we feel like $1 million, like God is talking to us, is gifting us, it's hugging us. I was walking the street in Portugal and I found 10 euros. And what is 10 euros? Nobody's going to get rich from 10 euros. But I never find anything on the floor. So when I found it, I took a picture. I sent it to all my friends. I felt like $1 million, And I said, God is hugging me. He just treated me for a cup of coffee. And we need to look, and we're going into Thanksgiving, and I really wanted this message to be, it's a gift, everybody who is here and everybody who's going to be listening to your story, there is a reason why you're listening to the story. It's not for nothing that you're listening to this story today. I don't know if you're going to become friends with John, if you're going to become friends with me, if you're going to find information about the nutritionist or a specific doctor, if you're going to go to get a checkup and find something. But there is a reason, and everything that happens, there is a reason. We just need to go with it, trust it, and be grateful that we have these opportunities. What you did, how you went from doing well to being, living in a building in your office, and then building so much, losing your way, then finding your way back, rebuilding a family. I see how close you are with your wife and your kids. I mean, I love following you. I don't follow so many pages, but yours always inspire me. All of those things are gifts that we have in our lives if we're just open to see them and receive them.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
No, I really feel that way. And Groove Digital has been also a gift for me, for my work. But I'm going to give you a call because I have some questions. So you're going to send me to the right person to ask those questions.
Yeah, sure.
But I'm excited that you're well. I'm excited that you live to tell this story. And
me too.
It's amazing. How did your wife and kids deal with the situation? Because I know the toll that it takes on the family. How did they handle it?
Well, for my wife, it was, it was rather tough. She didn't handle it very well. I mean, it was just probably a little overwhelming. It was maybe more overwhelming for her than it was for me. I didn't tell my children. They were too young.
Yeah.
And so that was maybe one of the tougher things for me to do, is not tell them. And so what I did was I made about a 5-minute video for each of them in case I didn't survive.
Oh my God.
And that was probably the toughest, 10 minutes of my life, making those videos, just having a conversation that I didn't survive. I actually made 3 of them. I made one for my other daughter as well, but she was there for the surgery, and she was in New York. She lives in New Jersey, so she was there the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a tough one. And then when I came back, when we were in New York, they just thought we were on vacation. then I told them I didn't want to have secrets from them. And I said, "Hey, Daddy had an issue, with his brain, and it's all behind us now." So, and then they had, my youngest daughter said, "What was wrong? Okay, what's on TV?" And my son had, just a few more questions than that, and then what's for dinner?
I love that.
So,
Okay.
they're kids, right?
It's so
So,
cute. Yeah.
yeah. So, otherwise, I could imagine telling them and then being, just completely nerve wracked for. It was a good 5 weeks before, from the time that I found out to August 16th was about 5 or 6 weeks. And I couldn't have put them through what I was going through then. They knew something was wrong. I was praying more than I ever prayed, and I mean I pray a lot, and I wasn't posting on Facebook, and I wasn't just I was depressed, and my brain chemistry changed completely, and even afterwards, it took a long time to come back. It took a long time.
Yeah. I mean, I always say that working on being joyful and working on being happy is a full-time job that we should never quit. And it's the first job that we quit. We get so busy with the day to day that we forget to measure. I wrote in my book that I wish there was a joy meter, a machine that we could, calculate what's our joy level today. And if it goes below a certain amount, then we need to implement things in our lives, in our day, to raise that number. But we don't have something very concrete. So we need to stop every day and say, how am I feeling? Am I okay? Am I happy? Am I joyful? If not, what can I do to raise the frequency that I am right now? And I tried to do that. Last night I was feeling, a little exhausted and cooped up too much in my office on my chair, like you mentioned before. And I said to my husband, let's go to the closest park around our house and just go for a walk outside. I put a new sweater. It was a little chilly, and I said, okay, I get to wear something new. I get to go for a walk, and just, the moments that you see that frequency going down, say, hold on, what could I do right now? Even if it's something quick to raise this vibration. And we forget that. And the problem is that the longer we forget, that number goes down and down and down and down, and we feel more and more sad and more depressed, and then to get it up is so hard.
Yeah.
So
I try to do that every morning. Every morning I have a little bit of a routine that I do every morning, so that I look at it like filling my gas tank every morning a little bit, so that when life comes at me and starts to empty my tank, I'm ready for it.
100%. And your walks probably are.
Yeah, I walk, I pray, I sit there and I think of all the things I'm grateful for, and I listen to. I take at least an hour walk every day, minimum of 1 hour, and so while I'm on that hour walk, I'll listen to something really, really good, whether it's either something spiritual or something about finance or psychology or something empowering. So I get both done at the same exact time, and so that I'm getting in an hour of exercise and an hour of mental exercise at the same time. And then I'll do, a little bit of my prayer, my gratitude. I come start my day, all that stuff starts piling at me. I'm already on full. If I didn't do that and I wake up on empty and then I don't know how people don't do what I do.
I know.
I just don't know how they don't start their day with a big walk and an hour walk with an hour listening to something great and being what they're grateful for and praying and if not praying, meditating or doing something for themselves. I couldn't survive. There's just no way at a high level.
I agree. What time do you wake up?
I wake up about 5:30 or 6, and then I have coffee, and I'll just usually hang around the house a little bit. I have my own quiet time, and then I head to the beach around 7, and then from 7:30 to say 8:30, I'm down there walking, and then I start my day at 9.
Fabulous.
But I'm starting my day at 9, but I've already started my day I've already had 2.5 hours or 3 hours to myself.
Yeah,
On
that's
me.
the best gift. And I need to go back to it. I was very religious about it, and then with my husband's health, and then we moved. It has been insane, but I miss it, and I'm committing myself to going back to it. And I usually, when I do those lives, people inspire me to go back and do stuff. I actually went vegan for about 6 months because of one of my speakers. So, I try learn from every single person that comes, and I adopt things that I learn from them. And I am so grateful that you're here. I'm so grateful that you honored me with your story. I have no doubt that we're going to affect somebody's life today. Couldn't be a better show the day before Thanksgiving. I am going to come after you for that lunch.
Thank you for having me.
My pleasure, John. It has been so great. And be in touch, connect.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
And I wish you continued health for you. And tell your wife one last thing, is something that I had to learn to do it. But tell your wife that going through what she went through is very traumatic. And usually people are asking about the health of the person who went through something. But the family members, especially the wife, the spouse, the partner, goes through a tremendous trauma, and nobody's asking her how she's doing, how she's handling, how she's coping, even post what happened. And she needs to find support. She needs to find other moms, other wives that went through an experience like that to lean on, because there's certain things that she's going to say that she feels that she needs to say to somebody that went through the same thing. And if she wants to reach out to me, I would be happy. A lot of what she went through, I went through. And it's not easy, and I'm here for her. Our community is here for her. And if she needs support, we would love to support her.
Thank you so much.
Okay, so have a happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving.
To you and to everybody who's listening. Please share this story. It could help and save somebody's life. And please don't forget to check on my page for information on the retreat. If you want to buy somebody a gift, that's a beautiful gift to give. It's going to be an amazing kintsugi, healing, and a gratitude retreat. So I will see you next time. John, again, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Have a good Thanksgiving.
Bye-bye. Happy Thanksgiving.
Bye.